Okay, so picture this. A city, Jerusalem, has just pulled off an absolute miracle. I mean, against all odds, they've rebuilt their massive protective wall in just 52 days. It's this huge moment of triumph, right? A symbol of safety and a brand new start. But once the dust settles and the cheering fades, a much deeper question starts to bubble up. What happens when you've built the fortress, but you're not really sure who you are inside of it anymore? That's the real challenge facing these people, and honestly, it's the heart of the incredible story we're diving into today. So, here's our roadmap. We're going to see why a wall just wasn't enough. Then, look at this surprising hunger for truth that pops up. We'll get into a moment where understanding leads to tears, but then see how that turns into the joy of a fresh start. From there, it's all about celebrating with a new purpose. And finally, we'll pull it all together into a timeless blueprint for renewal. All right, so the big wall is finished. It's a massive physical achievement, no doubt. But here's the problem. Building a wall around a city doesn't automatically rebuild the identity of the people living in it. You have to remember, they'd spent generations in exile. They knew how to build stuff, sure, but they'd kind of forgotten who they were supposed to be. And this is where you see two key players step up. The physical rebuilding, that incredible 52-day job, that was led by the governor, Nehemiah. He was the get-it-done guy. But the internal rebuilding, that needed a totally different skill set. And that's where the scholar, Ezra, comes in. It just goes to show, external security and internal identity, they're two very different projects. And for a community to be truly whole, it needs both. So, how in the world does this internal rebuilding even start? Well, this is where the story gets really interesting. This revival doesn't kick off because a leader issues a command. No, it starts with a powerful, unified cry that comes directly from the people themselves. Just try to imagine the scene. A huge crowd gathers in a public square, and the text makes a big deal about this. It wasn't just a few people, it was all the people gathered as one. We're talking men, women, and even the kids who were old enough to get what was going on. There's this incredible sense of voluntary unity in the air. And boom, this is the moment everything pivots. Nobody forced them. They asked Ezra to bring out their foundational text, the Book of the Law. Think about that. This isn't just them asking for a story time. This is a deep collective cry of spiritual hunger. It's like they're all saying, we're lost. We need to find our way back to our foundation. And get this, for nearly 6 hours, from the crack of dawn until noon, the entire crowd stood there and listened as Ezra read. Can you imagine? 6 hours, nobody leaves, they were completely captivated, which just shows you how desperate they were to reconnect with their identity. But here's the thing, the words Ezra was reading were in ancient Hebrew. The language people actually spoke every day was Aramaic now, so just hearing the sounds wasn't enough. For any of this to matter, for a real breakthrough to happen, they had to actually understand it. So they came up with this really clever system. You've got Ezra up on a platform, reading the text. But then you have this whole team of assistants, the Levites, moving through the crowd. They're like an army of interpreters, translating the Hebrew into Aramaic and explaining what it all meant. Right there on the spot. It was this massive, coordinated teaching effort with just one goal, making sure everyone understood. And when that understanding finally clicks, wow, the reaction is just overwhelming. It's like these ancient words suddenly became a mirror, and for the first time in a long time, they saw just how far they had drifted from their core beliefs. And the people they began to weep, a whole crowd overcome with this shared grief and conviction. Now, you might think this is where the story gets super heavy, a day just defined by sorrow and guilt. But the leaders, Nehemiah and Ezra, they see something totally different happening. They see this moment of conviction not as an ending, but as a really powerful beginning. Their response is completely unexpected. They tell the people to stop crying. They totally reframe the situation, declaring, hey, this day is holy. It's a day for celebration, not for mourning. You see, to them, the tears weren't a sign of failure. They were a sign that the process of renewal was actually working. And this leads to one of the most powerful lines in the story. The joy of the Lord is your strength. Now, this isn't just some nice, feel-good phrase. It's a strategic command. They're teaching the people that real recovery doesn't come from stewing in your past mistakes. Guilt can paralyze you, but joy gives you the fuel, the strength you need for the hard work of rebuilding. And this newfound joy and understanding wasn't just some emotional high that faded away. Nope, it immediately sparked action. The people were hungry for more, and they were ready to put what they just learned into practice right away. So the very next day, the community leaders get together with Ezra to study the text even more deeply. And as they're reading, they rediscover a command they had totally neglected: the celebration of the Feast of Tabernacles. It was this week-long festival all about remembering God's provision for their ancestors, a huge celebration of gratitude. I mean, think about how huge this was. According to the text, a celebration this authentic hadn't happened since the days of Joshua. We're talking centuries earlier. They weren't just bringing back a party, they were reclaiming a core piece of their identity. And it says they did it with very great joy. So when you take a step back and look at this whole incredible story, you start to see it's not just some old historical account. It's a blueprint. It's a pattern for what genuine community transformation actually looks like, even for us today. Look at the steps. It all starts with a voluntary hunger to listen. That leads to a real respect for the source material, followed by the hard work of making sure people actually get it. That genuine understanding sparks an emotional response, one that doesn't just end in guilt, but pivots to the amazing discovery that joy is what gives you strength. And finally, all of that leads to a real commitment to actually do something with what you've learned. And for a bit of theological context, the sources we've looked at point out that for Christians, this whole story, this deep reverence for the written word of God, is seen as pointing toward an even deeper reality: Jesus, who the Gospel of John calls the living word, the ultimate embodiment of God's truth and presence right here with us. So, this leaves us with a pretty powerful question to chew on. When we look at this ancient blueprint for renewal, which is all about rediscovering, understanding, and then joyfully acting on foundational truths, it makes you wonder, what traditions, what core texts in our own communities, our families, or even just in our own lives are maybe sitting on a shelf, just waiting to be rediscovered and brought back to life?